I think we should just right off the top get to the newsiest thing of the day. Carter Hart and the four NHLers, 5 total players charged in the Hockey Canada sexual assault case. The press conference began about an hour ago.
It was about 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It was around 2 o'clock, and it's there's nothing that really came out of it that we didn't already piece together, hear through reports, but the situation is, I guess, official, and the proceedings are underway now. They were charged. 1 count of sexual assault is what I saw for Carter Hart. Is there anything we need to really get into with this before I don't know what to say.
It's obviously terrible.
Yeah.
And I would not expect Carter Hart to be, in the Flyers cards anytime soon. It seems like where the situation is that the charges are made official, so now we're no longer going by reports. We now know that Carter Hart is one of the 5. It appears that the next court-related proceeding will be on April 30th. The one thing that I am intrigued to see how it plays out, I'm on record as thinking that I do not believe there is any chance that Carter Hart is going to play while play an NHL game, whether it's for the Flyers or anybody else, while this proceeding is still, in the process, I would say. That said, I am intrigued to see how this is going to play out from a availability standpoint, because Gary Bettman did talk to the media at the All-Star game, and he more or less said, we're going to wait until this proceeding plays out. We're not going to implement any discipline until the legal process concluded. Right now, Carter Hart is on an indefinite leave of absence that he himself requested. So I do wonder, what happens if Carter Hart says, I'm back? If I had to guess, I would assume there's some sort of handshake agreement between everyone's sides, just stay out of this. And, if you try to come back, then our hands may be forced. And if you force our hand, perhaps then you may never play another game in the NHL, period. Definitely, regardless of whether you're innocent or not. I don't know. But it does, there's ambiguity still, which is concerning to me. I was really hoping that the NHL would just draw a line and be like, as long as these charges are outstanding, then these guys can't play.
One would think.
But it seems like Gary Bettman, in his classic lawyer self, wants to make it ambiguous. And
his comments were something else.
I still don't think Carter Hart is going to be back for the Flyers this year. I also suspect that he will not be qualified, and then he will be an unrestricted free agent until the legal proceedings are concluded. But I don't know for sure. And Gary Bettman, by making it as ambiguous as he did, left the door open for other things to happen over the next month or so, which is worth keeping an eye on.
Obviously, the bigger story here is the sexual assault case. But just from a pure, I like to scroll cap friendly, I find these things interesting perspective, all 4 NHL players are restricted free agents after this season. It makes sense. They're all the same age, about the same point in their contracts.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how it plays out, how the league handles, if they don't get qualifying offers, because I can't imagine extending a qualifying offer to these guys with this thing still up in the air. Do they then just become unrestricted free agents? Is there some sort of... we're putting
some sort of limbo.
We're putting a time lapse.
Yeah, like a freeze.
There's a freeze. I'm not sure. That's just, I find how the NHL handles that will be something to keep an eye on, I guess. But I would assume these guys, you can't bring these dudes back to your team until there is a definite, and the teams that they're on, I think it's just kind of that's over.
Yeah, I don't know how the NHL, not just the teams, but the league as a whole, could allow, even setting aside the morality elements of it, I just don't know how they could allow us that kind of circus of bringing a guy back who is, having charges laid against him in this serious of a case and just letting him play. I can't imagine.
So you guys know I don't other sport as much as you two do. Has there been a situation in which an active player has criminal charges pressed against them and they have not been suspended?
I think it depends on the criminal charge. There have been times where a guy will get, he'll get arrested for some type of I don't know, not even domestic violence because obviously very serious, but I'm just thinking like, some type of thing, and they will let him play in the interim until the legal case is.
It does
Just
kind of
arrested or
vary. Like,
charged?
Arrest. I'm not a lawyer.
I know. That's the thing. Like, because I know that like guys get arrested all the time. I mean, they get not all the time, but like you hear about guys.
There's a lot
arrested.
of professional athletes. Some of them get arrested.
Right.
sometimes.
Yes.
And being arrested is obviously different from being formally charged with a crime. And it's just like I was surprised to hear Bettman say, like, "Nah, we're not suspending these guys. They're still active players." Like, but why?
I really think what Bettman's doing here is he's trying to kind of have his cake and eat it too, because what he's doing is he's crossing his fingers that none of these players are going to force his hand. That they can just run the clock out on these contracts. They're never going to see these guys again over the rest of this year because all these players hold to their indefinite leaves of absence
just
because
kicking the can
because they're dealing and then when their contracts expire, then the NHL doesn't really have to worry about it that much anymore. And that very well could be how it plays out. However, by not doing anything, Bettman is leaving the door open for a player to say, "I'm done with my indefinite leave of absence. I want to play. What are you going to do? Not play me?" I'm not saying any of them are going to do it. I'm just saying that because Bettman refused to, and the reason why he refused to do it, surely, is because he's worried about grievances and lawsuits and all that stuff. And my thing would be just do the right thing. But this is Gary Bettman, the lawyer. This is what he's going to do.
The league is getting lucky with all of their contracts expiring.
Yes.
Like, there's not going to be some major contract termination situation that they have to, now we have to deal with this ourselves.
Right.
Like they're getting a little lucky in that regard, just from a PR perspective, not like lucky. Like obviously it's bad for this to happen.
I just think that what's going on here is that Gary Bettman is trying to kick the can down the road, have his cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
And we shall see if any of the four, I guess, because Ferment is not an NHL player, but if any of the four kind of call his bluff, I would hope not. I would hope that they all, because Bettman basically said, like, I would hope that they would be more focused on their legal case right now than playing in the NHL. But he left the door open. So it's just something to keep an eye on. My guess is that it doesn't become an issue, but Bettman left the door open. Yeah. And that's a bit frustrating.
It is.
We all silly like the mayor.